So you thought Photoshop was easy, isn't it? It isn't. It's so hard you cannot even imagine. Let me show you how hard it is. So here we are in our Finder or Explorer, and let's drag and drop this subject photo into Photoshop. Alright, and let's say we want to change the background. Let me show you how hard it is. First of all, let's unlock the background layer. Just click on the lock and then just bring in the new background. So you're gonna go back to our Finder or Explorer, just drag and drop the background, right? Pretty hard, right? Very hard. And let's make the background a little bigger. So hard, isn't it? And let's take it a little up. Okay, now we want the background to be behind the subject, right? So we take the background behind the subject layer and we select the subject layer, and then we just open up our properties. It's so hard finding out the properties, and then it's so hard clicking on this button called remove background. And we have changed the background with so much difficulty, right? Now we have to like move it accordingly. Now we have to crop it accordingly. Maybe show more of the sky, just like so. See how hard that was? If you haven't gotten the joke yet, I'm so sorry. Photoshop is simple if we just understand the concepts. That's it. And speaking of concepts, let's start from ground up. First of all, what the hell is Photoshop? Photoshop is a program or a software to create and edit images made up of pixels. Now, what is a pixel? Well, pixel is a small box with just one color. Just one. Now, one or more pixels come together to create an image for you. Let me show you an example. Look at this box right there. What does it have? Just one color, right? And that, my friend, is a pixel. Right next to it is another box with a different shade of pink than the first one. Right next to it is another box, maybe with the same or different color. Now, all of these pixels come together to create an image for you. Let's take a look. And there you have it. Usually, a good quality standard photograph has at least 1 million pixels. And that's why in general terms, we use it as a standard and we call it mega. And therefore, when you watch advertisements of cameras or smartphones, they say this smartphone camera can capture images of 12 megapixels or 24 megapixels. Now you know what they mean. This means that these cameras can capture images which have 12 million pixels. In other words, 12 megapixels. Make sense? Let me show that to you. Have a look at this image again. It has a lot of details, right? Even if you zoom in, see how much details this has? And you can zoom in a lot into this image. You know why? Because it has a lot of pixels. Now, how many pixels, you might ask? Have a look right there at the bottom. Now, if you cannot see the resolution, you can click on this arrow right there and then choose Document Dimensions. It will show you the dimensions. Now, this is 5142 pixels wide, which means from here to the right end, you have 5142 pixels stacked up by 5142 pixels in height. So from top to bottom, you have 5142. So to find the entire number of pixels, we multiply both of them. So 5142 into 5142. What should be the result? It should be somewhere around 26.4 million pixels. Therefore, we can say that this image, my friend, is 26.4 megapixels. The lesser the number of pixels, the lesser the details. Therefore, have a look at another version of this image. Look at the resolution, 1000 by 1000, which means 1 million pixels or 1 megapixel. Not much. That one was 26.4. This is just one. If you zoom in, you will have a look. This one doesn't have much details compared to the previous one. If you zoom in, it has a ton more details. So why are we talking about pixels? Now you must be thinking, I came here to learn Photoshop. Why is this crazy guy going on and on about pixels? Well, there's a reason. Any graphic that is made up of pixels, we call it raster graphics. anything made up of pixels is a raster graphic. Now, Photoshop is a software that creates and edits raster graphics. That's it. Photoshop is a raster graphic editing and creation software. Now you might ask, is there any other kind of graphic? Yes, of course. There is vector graphic. Now raster graphics are based on pixels, whereas vector graphics are based on mathematics. It's not at all based on pixels. And one of the most popular software to create and edit vector graphics is undoubtedly Adobe Illustrator. Let me show you a quick example. So here we are in Adobe Illustrator, and just take a look at this illustration. It's so adorable, isn't it? Now this is a vector graphic, my friend, which means it's based upon mathematics, not at all pixels, which also means since this is not based on pixels, no matter how much you zoom in, this will never pixelate because there's no pixels. So let's zoom in even more. This will just never pixelate. Never ever. So this, my friend, is a vector graphic. But that is something for another class. For now, let's focus on Photoshop. Now what can you do with Photoshop? Well, the possibilities are only limited by pixels. What do we mean by that? Well, anything that you can imagine that can be created with pixels can be achieved with Photoshop. So let's say you want to replace the sky. What are we doing? Just changing some pixels, right? So it can be done with Photoshop. So you want to make the nose a little bigger. What are we doing? Just manipulating the pixels. Can it be done with Photoshop? Of course, yes. Whenever it has to deal with pixels, changing the pixels, creating the pixels, or even vanishing the pixels, anything to deal with pixels, anything you can imagine that can be created or deleted or manipulated with pixels can be done with Photoshop. Now let's open up Photoshop and understand what's on the screen. Always keep in mind that you are more powerful and intelligent than Photoshop. That Photoshop is just a tool to help you express yourself as an artist. Never let that intimidate you. Let's take a look. When you open Photoshop for the first time, this is what you see. This is Photoshop 2020. If you're using a previous version, you might be seeing something different. Now keep in mind, this is the home screen. Alright. As soon as you click on the Photoshop logo right there, it takes you to the Photoshop workspace. Workspace is where you work. Simple, right? Again, if you click on the home icon, it's gonna take you to the home screen. So self-explanatory. Now, as you begin working on the project, this area right here will begin to show you your previous project that you work on so that you can easily access your recent projects. So let's say this is the project that I worked on first. I worked on it a little bit, I saved it, and then I closed it. Again, let's say this is the project I worked on again. This is another example, and then I worked on it and then I closed it. So as you can see, this area begins to show you your recent projects. You can easily access them by simply clicking on them. Easy? Right. Let's close that. It'll take you back to the workspace. Now, if you don't want to close the image and again go back to the home screen so that you can open up some more recent projects, you can always click on the home button right there. That file is already open. You can open another project from the recent list and both of them will be open for you. Simple stuff. Now do keep in mind that your workspace is very personal to you. You can customize it according to your needs, and your workspace might be absolutely different from the one that I use. Alright, so let's open up the workspace. So I have my navigator, I have my layers panel, I have my channels panel, I have my tools open like this. You can adjust it in any way you want. Now, right now, it might look very confusing to you. So many buttons, so many menus, so many checkboxes. Don't be scared. If you're starting out, you can always go to Window, Workspace. I have a lot of workspace saved right there at the top. As you create a workspace, you can save them and it will show up right there at the top. However, there are some default workspaces. If you're working in 3D, you can choose a 3D workspace. If you're creating a painting, there's a painting workspace. If you're editing your photographs, there's a photography workspace, right? Let's choose the default, and that is Essentials. Once you choose Essentials, it also might look odd to you. You might want to go to Window, Workspace, and then reset Essentials, because I had used Essentials before and I moved things around here and there. So it has set to its previous essential. So you might have to choose Essentials and then again go to Window, Workspace, and then choose Reset Essentials. Alright, this is what the Essential Workspace looks like. Now, some of it is hidden beyond the screen. You know why? Because I scaled it. I made the screen a little bigger so that you can see things clearly. So yours might be a little different. So let's drag it up. And by the way, we don't need colors, swatches, gradients, and patterns. So we're gonna click on this grid right there and close tab group. Everything in that group will be closed. Close tab group. And there is a Learn tab where you can learn Photoshop. There are some basic tutorials that you can use. There's libraries, there's adjustments. We don't need all of them as well. So close tab group. Layers is important. Channels is